Today is how do you pick a real estate agent?
Yes, so
That can be a couple of different things. Agents are now probably better educated as well as to what properties are going to sell
talking
for.
about it over coffee when we used to just catch up for coffee and not record it. You talk about it in a way that's accessible and easy to listen.
If you've been in your career for a short while, how do you take yourself to the next level?
Yep.
It was really
a
good.
podcast.
Yeah,
clearly.
exactly right. Yeah, it's just epic voice guy.
Week on the Property Pod. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Property Pod. I'm your host, Aaron Horn, and I am very, very happy to be back at the desk recording today with the crew. I've got Paddy Berry and Johnny Mack on the line.
And we are excited to be back.
Yeah,
Gentlemen.
What an interesting hiatus we went on. I'm not sure if you guys remember, but I actually listened back to our last recording just this morning to kind of get a feel for what we're doing. And we said we were going on a quick 3-week break when I was going to have the birth of my first child.
Yep, which I'm assuming went well.
Went extremely well. Yes. Well, the whole world has changed since then. We've the 3-week break. You guys even joked about having your own episode without me and all the audio.
Let's face it, it was never going to happen, but I like to think that it could have done.
Well, now you've got the perfect excuse. You could actually say, look, something got in the way that has kind of changed the entire world, changed the landscape of podcasting, of real estate, of essentially the globe.
Yeah, well, who knew that obviously we were going to get hit with COVID-19? That's just crazy, and it's just thrown everyone into a tailspin. But that's not the only reason we were obviously on hiatus. We were doing a bit of reno work, trying to rebuild our studio, ready for an exciting new year of the Property Pod, and it just all compounded into a big giant gap, which shouldn't have been that long, but we're back.
Yeah.
Look, and one of the most amazing things of the break was that we were getting correspondence kind of every week. There was stuff coming through. People were writing in, had a few people congratulate me or wish me luck and my partner luck on the birth of what turned out to be my son, Jack, who I'm extremely proud of. He's a little legend. So we didn't know what he was going to be, and he came out a little boy and he's thriving. So kind of one silver lining of all this COVID stuff is I've got to spend the fourth trimester with him at home, working from home with all this work from home business. So yeah, got to see the little man grow just in that little period. But thank you to everybody out there that reached out and wished us luck. We had a few people from Queensland and
Yeah, we had a guy from Queensland that's reached out over the last 12 weeks. I think people being in isolation, they must have been going through the archives trying to find things to listen to because it's been amazing how many people have reached out to us over the last couple of weeks. So
the downloads weren't too bad. Just like going through that, like kind of obviously they slowed down because the episode slowed down, but hopefully, you know, we'll take all the listeners we had in the past and maybe some people have passed on info about the Property Pod to more people out there.
yeah, definitely. Well, the first thing is we're back on the mics recording, so I think that's a step in the right direction.
Yeah, and just to throw it out there, we are practicing social distancing. So we are in a brand new studio that Pat's built. It's got all this green shrubbery up against me and got a big studio light that's it's like a neon. It looks really, really cool. But Pat is at least, what would you say, 2.5 metres away from me, just to be extra safe?
I'm out in the hallway. You may not be able to see. Oh, maybe you can because I think we're recording the Zoom meeting that we're working on at the moment. But I'm in the hallway. Aaron's in the studio. So if I'm a bit echoey, that's because I'm sort of half out in the hall. And we've got John dialing in on the phone with us today via Zoom. So trying to do our part to keep it separate. So if anyone's wondering why the audio's not 100% top notch today, it's just because of the way we're trying to keep our separation apart.
Well, I think the measured from Glenorchy to Moon is about 4 kilometres, so I think we've got me covered.
How are you doing out there, mate? Tell us all about what's happening on your side of the isolation.
Well, I think one of the things that we sort of did when all this started was there was that real urgency to try and provide advice. And it just kept changing on a day-to-day basis. And we just went quiet. And I know to our clients, we just had to say, look, if you don't hear from us, everything's okay. And then we'll reach out directly if there's something you need to know. Because it's just biting us on the butt every time we tried to get ahead or release the information that was released, because then that information that was released, then 3 hours later was different. And then it was like, all right, it means of just trying to, at the very beginning, there's the feeling of putting out spot fires, realistically.
I can vouch for that as well, J-Mac. That was one of the hardest things we were dealing with as well.
Just before we jump right into kind of everything that's happened on that side of things, Pat, you were actually overseas when everything kind of hit. So not only was the hiatus that I was away, but you kind of had a 2-week, planned. Was it more than 2 weeks that you were going to be away?
Yeah, so I was supposed to be away for almost 3.5 weeks. I ended up being away for 9 days. Spent a bit of time on a cruise boat, which I'm not sure if that was the cleverest idea, but hey, we were the last cruise boat to leave America before the boats all shut down. And then I spent 48 hours in New York City, where they went from 63 cases to something like 600 and something cases in the space of that 48 hours. So
what a crazy, I know you've been to New York a few times before, and you were sending me Snapchats through saying
it was a ghost town.
Yeah,
we walked from one end of Manhattan Island to the other in one day, and I think we were lucky to run into 100 people. And for anyone listening that's been to New York before or seen photos, you don't go 100 meters, or you don't go 10 meters without running into 100 people. So to have that sort of space in such a large city, it really hit home really fast what is happening out there. And we discovered very fast that we needed to get home ourselves.
And so you were traveling with your kids, obviously.
Yeah, my kids, my wife, and mother and father-in-law. So there was 6 of us together. So lucky enough, Virgin were really helpful to us, and they got us home nice and safe and got us on some new flights, which was fantastic. But then we were stuck in isolation at home for 2 weeks when it really started to ramp up and things started shutting down here. So trying to get through all of that drama from home without being on the front line trying to help our clients, it was a very challenging 2 weeks and a lot of sleepless nights. But hey, we got through it, and everything's starting to settle down a little bit now, which is nice.
I know when we were chatting a fair bit too, Pat, it was just to mean that that frustration where you couldn't be with the team, everything's done by phone and emails, just doesn't cut it close to. I know I can't speak for every industry, but when you're trying to ensure everyone's looked after, you just can't beat face to face, belly to belly half the time, and just too much gets lost in just email communication alone.
It's very challenging when you're trying to have policy and procedures that you're developing on the fly as well, because you've never been through this before. So you don't know how the best way to handle it. You don't know what you should be or shouldn't be doing, what others in the industry are doing, because you can't actually leave your house to go find out what's happening out in the world. And for me when I left, COVID was nothing. It was just a word. When I came back, I was stuck at home when it was getting worse. I wasn't at Coles seeing the shelves empty and the panic that was around. I saw it on the news, but how much do you read into the news? Is it all just hype, or is it happening here in Hobart? Because quite often there's a disconnection between mainland and Tasmania. So we were trying to how much do we take on board of what the news is saying? So for us, it was really hard to manage it remotely. And sure, there's great things like Zoom and things that help you get through it, but it's not the same at being at the office and being able to talk directly to the staff and try to fix the problems face to face, I guess.
Yeah, even as Jack was born kind of just before everything hit, if he was to be born now, the hospitals are completely different where, they're all prepped for having your scan. And we had so many visitors that were coming through. But even in his, you get a little book where you write keepsakes or memories and stuff, and it said, what's in the news at the moment, the day I was born. And it was one of the days where the toilet paper fiasco was really ramping up. So we jokingly wrote, world goes crazy over toilet paper, virus is hitting. And we thought, that'll be funny. We'll have to tell him about that years and years later. What's this about toilet paper? But literally the whole, the world he was born into will be a completely different world post COVID-19.
Yeah, but that's the main thing, is that we've worked through the problems now, and I think.
Look, and can I just say it's amazing the way you guys have operated your businesses and kept everything afloat. And, there's lots of really, really tricky things that you need to navigate. And, as you say, you were overseas. It was kind of a perfect storm of the offices here at 414 are being renovated. So that was kind of a whole other issue of trying to
I tell you what,
piling it on.
If you think about it now, you'd think, what the frickin' hell were they doing? Everything couldn't have come at a worse time. But hey,
I saw a meme at the start of all this that said 2020, someone must have started playing Jumanji right at the start of the year. And it was can you guys just please finish your game so that the world can go back? And I was that's very accurate for how everything's gone down.
Yeah. But we're light at the end of the tunnel, and I thought, John and I were thinking that it might be a perfect time, if we are going to talk a bit of real estate, is to, I guess, just recap where we're at in the industry and what can people do and what can't they do, and is it actually possible to sell a house at the moment? Is it not possible? I think there's a few people out there, I guess, are curious around that. I personally don't want to probably get too much into the pricing side of things because I think that's still very up and down and it's a case-by-case basis. But I think there's some general things we could probably just run through to make people know what they can and can't do in the industry. What do you think, John?
Yeah, that and I was just staring at myself in this computer screen, realising that my chin's coming down a little bit more than it did probably 5 or 6 weeks ago.
What happened to all the? Oh, I guess you couldn't go to the gym anymore. So
yeah, just
stuck working at home.
all the routines completely broke, and then we discovered they could do wine tastings delivered to your home. So you do Facebook Live wine tasting. So not only has our industry changed, but a lot of others as well, and just happened to coincide with the worst diet for me, I think.
Your weakness for wine, John.
Yeah, it was too good.
I thought you were a Scotch man.
No, I think I'm an all alcohol kind of guy.
Drink responsibly.
Yeah, exactly. We approve this message.
What we might do first is we'll jump off to one of the coveted ads that we always go to give us a quick breather. We'll pop straight back from that and jump kind of into the world moving forward. How's that sound?
Sounds good.
Yeah.
All right, we'll be right back.
414 Real Estate has been operating within the northern suburbs of Hobart since 2006 with their innovative approach to marketing and managing your property. They have all your property needs covered. Find out more by visiting them today at 414.com.au.
As a family-run business, First National Real Estate MacGregor understands that the property market can be stressful. However, with a strong team in both sales and rentals, we are here to guide you through the property maze. Find out more today at MacGregorFM.com.
All right, guys. So we're not all the way out of the woods. I know that the world is kind of coming back to an even plane. It feels like some of the restrictions are being lifted and everyone's kind of starting to feel like we're on top of this. I guess in terms of real estate, it probably is worthwhile jumping into what we can do and what we can't do in the current climate.
I think the key thing to take away is that even with all this craziness happening, you still can buy a home, you still can sell a home. There's different rules now that we have to follow, and we're probably attacking it a completely different way that we used to.
Yep.
But things are still turning over. Things are still moving through nicely. It's just that there's a few more policy and procedures that we've had to implement to protect ourselves, protect our owners, and protect our purchasers that we're meeting on a daily basis as well. That's how you see it, J-Mac, or?
Yeah, well, my sort of approach was all we really realistically couldn't do. I mean, you had to have a bit more respect. Especially if there are properties that are tenanted or that do involve someone outside of the process. But all that was really taken away, and we didn't really know how it was going to pan out until it was happening, was the means of open homes. So all then it became was just one-on-one meetings with people.
Yeah, so people understand, you probably heard it in the news, but open homes have been cancelled at the moment. So we're not actually possible to run open homes as it stands. However, we still can do one-on-one private inspections. There's just a limit on how many people can attend that inspection. So I think here, correct me if I'm wrong, John, but I've been working on the agent plus 2 other people in the property.
Yeah, that was sort of my take on it. Or if it was, the agent and a family unit.
Okay, so if it was mum and dad and a couple of young kids, they're under the same roof.
Yeah. That's how that was the approach I took, because I guess whether or not that was technically what we were supposed to do, I thought that was reasonable, because if everyone's been sitting there together anyway, I'd assume that it's and that was it. But then never would I be overlapping inspections whatsoever. There was always a lot of breathing space between inspections, and I'd allow a lot more time as well. Because we didn't want, whereas maybe we might only allow 5 or 10 minutes between, I'd allow 10 or 15 minutes just in case.
And you guys would have been doing of the washing hands procedures and things like that.
Yeah, so
hand sanitizer.
Yeah, with us, hand sanitizer, we were big as well, or we still are big. And even when this all finishes, I don't know if we'll change our new procedures. We now use alcohol wipes to wipe down door handles, bench tops, handrails for staircases, bathroom handle doors, light switches if it's a nighttime showing, if they're going to have to be turned on. And we try to limit the amount of times the actual purchaser touches things. So we've been sending out an email when we book an inspection, getting people to confirm that they won't actually touch things around the home. with the idea that that'll limit how much we have to clean after they vacate. So after they leave the home. So if I'm showing somebody around and I can convince them to let me open a door for them, let me turn on a light, then I know exactly what's been touched in the home. So when I finish the inspection, I can quickly go around again with the alcohol wipe and just wipe everything back down.
And I think that's part of kind of what, as you say, you might not be changing that anytime. Like there's not just going to be a magical day where it's like, okay, now everything goes back to pre-corona where we've probably all learnt we should wash our hands more and we should be cleaner.
Yeah.
So I think moving forward, it'll probably become more the norm to be like, oh, these are kind of some of the measures we need to take when doing things out in public.
Yeah,
like this.
Well, I think so anyway. I can't see why we wouldn't take those extra precautions moving forward, even if once this is all calms down and is a bit under control. Like, you don't want to walk home with a cold of a nighttime like through winter months. So if you can avoid it by washing your hands a little bit more, then it makes sense, in my opinion.
Yeah, 1,000%.
Yeah, well, I know, like we've got the email today that's looking change where they're going to be easing restrictions. So, like the next phase will be you're allowed 10 people in an open home, but then you have to ensure that everyone's meeting 1.5 metres distance, but only then they've got to have every room's got to be 4.4 metres if there's more than one person. So then, in practical terms, when it's rare that, it's rare that every room in every house has 4.4 metres, and then restricting to 10, and then policing everyone as you walk through. For me, in this now, everyone sort of, for me, I guess I've got into a groove of expectation now. It might not even, I don't think it'd even be a nicer experience if all of a sudden we can allow more people through. I would think that we'd still just keep on the same process that we've got at the minute until everything's just gone.
Yeah.
Because at least with the one-on-one scenario, even though there's some small bits, you can still have a nice personable experience and then, chat to people and they can understand where you're coming from. But then if all of a sudden you had two agents walking around with a bat and smacking you in the knee every time you got into line, like it just wouldn't be a pleasant experience. So it's going to be interesting to see how these ease of restrictions actually play out. And from my guess is just, I wouldn't personally probably want to do it because I don't want to sit there and run around the house berating everybody. Like it completely defeat the purpose of trying to have a nice experience in the house.
This might sound like I just can't remember. Did you work security at Club Surreal back in the day, or were you like a glassy? Or
yeah, I was a glassy.
You never were on the door though, were you?
No, I did.
Aaron, you were hoping that you could bring back that skill set, were you?
Well, I was just thinking, like, imagine that being just like, oh yeah, I'm a real estate agent, but I've also got this special skill in my back pocket. I used to work the door at a night.
I was kind of hoping that we might end up with like a red carpet with a velvet
rope
thing. Yeah, velvet rope, and like you line up out the front. Rightio, you're not on the list. You're gonna have to wait to the next available.
I wouldn't put it past J-Mac to do that at an open home anyway.
The first thing I'd want to do is just say no to someone. It's like, oh, wrong shoes, mate. or they change the rules so you have to have like for every one guy there has to be 3 women. I think that's normally what happens in Sydney nightclubs, isn't it?
I think that's the rule of the ratio.
I can already see how you could skip the line too, John. If you've been to the property already and you're coming back for a second inspection, the agent's like, come this way, people, come this way, right through. And then everyone else in line's like, what the hell? I've been here for like 15 minutes.
And they just flash their stamp as you come in.
See? And every house now comes with lasers and strobe lights, and you just hear this constant boom, 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 boom.
If anyone is watching this video footage, you may see my son wandering around in the background. That's also what happens when you're trying to do work and homeschool at the same time. So apologies for that.
I guess like bringing it back, one thing I've noticed, thinking like it's been a really stressful experience because I was only thinking the other day, like, well, I'm a bit knackered, and I think a lot of for me, I was supposed to be on holidays technically, and I'd imagine everyone's what happens just completely upturned, which has been fascinating because we're all in the same boat from that perspective.
Yeah, it's really interesting that the world is kind of on pause and how everyone's handled that. Yeah,
exactly. Not a lot changed. And what I mean by that is from at least the biggest impact it had practically was from tenancies. So I know you guys are the same, and that like once it was all done, we went right, no more inspections. And of course, they released all those levels of emergency legislation, which we're trying to navigate through. But then from the selling and buying perspective, aside from maybe some reluctance from clients considering what is the right move for them, the process didn't really change a heck of a lot. aside from having those couple of care approaches to what you need to do, like you said, Pat, with approaching with the cleaning and limiting on inspections, etc. But what I've found at the end of it is that we still had plenty of transactions that have gone through, and that by the end of it, what was happening is the best I could come up with was, look, whoever wants to buy still seems to be buying, and whoever needs to sell still seems to be selling. And then we've made those changes in accordingly.
Yeah, working as a photographer in the industry, I was worried. I was like, how am I going to maintain work through this period? Am I going to be stuck? This young family I've got to support and stuff. But, I'm still getting bookings come through from yourself, John. I was having some from here. There was kind of people doing rental properties at 414 that, they were still changing over and kept me employed across that thing. And I was like, I kind of thought the whole world would stop. I thought, it's an uncertain time. It's all going to stop.
And I think it did for 2 to 3 weeks. And then it was about 10 days ago, 15 days ago, people realized, me personally, I feel like people realized this is the new normal. So I was always going to sell. I may as well just go do it. Yeah. And I think because for a good couple of weeks it was, or I was more focused, I think, on fixing all the other problems. I wasn't focusing on listing and selling homes. Yeah. So maybe that need wasn't there for me. But I think in general, from what I could tell with my agents in the office, they were a little bit more quiet. But then all of a sudden something happened, and then people realised that, this is going to be probably like this for another 12 months. So do we want to put our life on hold for 12 months, or do we want to go try do it in this market? And a lot of people just decided, no, we'll keep pushing forward. And it just seems to have been what's happened. And I do love the creativity that everyone's had to be able to reinvent their jobs and their work. And that has been one of the crazy things to see coming out of all of this, is kind of like John's talking about his wine nights and stuff like that, like people delivering wine to your door and kind of just the creativity across the board of even restaurants that'll never do takeaway before now doing takeaway. Like we had Frogmore Creek do a delivery for a night, for a special date night, and we were just like, this is a lovely experience that you never would have had prior to this. Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah. John's I can't afford Frogmore Creek. What's going on?
With all the wine I've been drinking. A while ago, maybe 18 months ago, I trialled doing, especially on our vacant sale properties, book your inspection online. So because it had been running really successful with the rental properties, I thought, why not integrate that with the sale? And I had zero uptake on it, which was surprising. And at the time, I was asking people, why didn't you look to do it? And they said, no, I just felt more comfortable just reaching out directly. But now, reintroducing that people seem to have absolutely no issue whatsoever with it. And it's been a much more, anecdotally, it felt a lot more comfortable doing that approach, just looking, okay, here's the times and days that I can suit me, and I'm happy to do that. And I think when it comes to the sale processes, because it seemed a much more emotionally engaging or concerning, they wanted that little bit more of a human connection before they did it, but now there's no trouble.
It's funny you say that. I followed your lead and set up book your own inspection online with a lot of my properties, and I think in 3 weeks I've had 21 bookings come through that system, so nearly one a day. So there's definitely people out there looking. There's definitely people out there prepared to use the technology, and we just sort of backed it up by saying, look, you have to do it this way because we've included some questionnaires we'll need you to answer to be COVID safe. So to protect our owners and to protect ourselves, you'll need to answer 10 questions when booking an inspection, and not one person kicked up a fuss about it. They're like, yep, no problem. If that's what it is, that's what it is.
I think as John's kind of alluded to, some people prefer that now because they know, every due diligence is being taken, and it should show to the purchaser as well that we take it serious as well, that we're not cowboying this, if we're asking you to answer these, then you have to understand that we're not going to be doing the wrong thing at our end either, because we're trying to protect our safety. So I think it's a two-way stream. We may not be answering those exact same questions back to the buyer. However, by asking the buyer, it should be showing to them that we're serious about it ourselves. Yeah, we even kind of, I'm employed under your banner. I've been going to properties and, the tenants are being told if you're in the property, unfortunately, you might have to sit out the back, or you might need to leave for this period of time because we can't send in our photographer and risk him and risk you and risk all these things. So there's kind of, these measures are showing that, this is something that is being taken seriously and we're going to, do it properly. Look, I think all we can do is navigate each day as it comes, is what it boils down to. I think that's what we're trying to get at. Yeah, well, no, like it's crazy because it does change, and at the moment, the world might be going back to a newish normal kind of this week, next week, as kind of restrictions are coming through. Like John, you said there was an email sent out by REIT with new guidelines today.
That's it. Yeah. So they're just. I mean, I could read out a couple to you, but so then it would be say open homes and auctions may resume face to face with a maximum of 10 attendees. And then it says this maximum number of
10 to one of my open homes.
Oh, exactly right. But then you say the what is it? Yeah. So then it goes. Real estate agents must ensure that in any given space there is enough room to allow 4 square meters per person, and that attendees maintain 1.5 meters distance from others. This may restrict the number of people viewing a house or room at any one time. I mean, when I look at that, I'm like, why would you even bother? Sticking to these one-on-one, and yes, it slows down the process in a big way. But trying to navigate that just seems to be way too much pain for the game.
Your little Sandy Bay unit at the moment, John, that would only allow you to put 2 people in it at the best of times, wouldn't it?
That's it.
Yeah, because that's only quite a small place.
Yeah. So with like a little 1 bedroom, like so then we do the bouncer thing. So you're taping out all the things for people to be standing outside while you slowly bring people through. It's like, well, why bother? It's like, how about we just stick with the one-on-one inspections?
Imagine if in the world, like in the future, everywhere is just 1.5 meter dots. Like every street you walk down, it's just little dots everywhere.
Be like Pac-Man.
Yeah.
Collecting little dots. Gobble,
yeah,
gobble,
just
gobble.
a waka.
All the people that have been waiting for an episode to come back, and they're like, why did we bother?
Yeah.
Well, no, a lot. I mean, obviously, I'm getting asked a lot. Look, what do you think the market's going to do? And man, my fallback's just been, look, I just don't know. Who knows? And then the question then is, what do we do with our property? Well, then for me, I'm sort of the advice I've been following is, look, what do we really need to look at right now? So we've just got to take it on in the next. What do you need over the next? And it doesn't change. In fact, you've still got to have a strategy or a time frame. But I think what's happened, we saw a lot of people rush to the market very quickly before as the virus hit, but now everything started to settle. Like you said before, Pat, people are just revisiting and going about their lives as they would have anyway. And then I suppose, like, what should we wait to? What should we do? Well, then it's like, well, what do you need to do? The advice sort of doesn't change from a practitioner's perspective, is that we're not, it's not I don't see it as my role specifically to try and forecast the future. That's just, it's a guessing game that, we can certainly help map out an idea, but from a day-to-day perspective, it's like, well, this is what we need to do. These are the moves we need to make. And I know with that one, we've got at Sandy Bay, for example, like that, our particular owner, he lives in Canberra, and he just wants to move that capital to Canberra so he can buy his home there. So whether or not it was relevant to the virus or not, now it's just he wants it gone, so now's the time to sell it. Yeah. Doesn't matter.
No, that's exactly right. But
yes, that's probably a good point. Just before we wrap up, we've kind of got to the point where we've discussed everything we know. We're only experts on what we're experts on, and that's not much. But we've kind of got to the point where I just wanted to throw to you, Pat. You're the kind of the tech head of the pod. One thing I've been doing a lot of and is really good for this social distancing and being able to show properties is the Madhupur, the 3D scanning. Yeah. I know, John, you've been doing or getting me to do a few. Actually, you've been doing a few yourself.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. So
cool.
For those that I would know, we've talked about Madhupur before, but just in case you haven't listened to some of our previous episodes, it's basically Google Maps inside a house. So you can basically walk through the entire house, gives you a feel for what it is. And for me, it's been a massive game changer to help minimize the amount of inspections that we do. So a lot of people, I don't know if you've ever gone to look at a house, you get there and you're there for a couple of minutes, you're like, actually, shoot, this isn't actually what I wanted. So it's not for me.
The photos aren't what I thought it was, or it's come across in a certain way that it isn't what I thought it was.
Yeah, so the Madhupur, I think, is helping to minimize that from happening, which means less personal contact and less face-to-face contact. So we've been putting it obviously on all the real estate websites, but our first point of call as well before we allow anyone to book an inspection is we've been emailing that potential buyer and saying, hey, to follow with government guidelines and to keeping our distance and only going out when necessary, we'd really love to make sure that you've had the opportunity to view the Madhupur tour and the video that we've produced on the property. If you've used both of these features and they are sort of ticking a lot of boxes for you, we're more than happy to show you through, but we really would love for you to use this first. And I think that is another technology-based tool that's really helped us make sure we're dealing with more genuine buyers when we actually meet them at the property and not just time wasters or people that are just getting a feel for the market or, and
or
that's
they're bored in isolation and they just want something to do.
Well, that's exactly right. And that's not what we want. We want to make sure that our industry doesn't get extra rules handed down onto it. So we're doing everything in our power to make sure that we're minimising the amount of face-to-face contact wherever we can. And Madhupur has been really good in our business for that.
So it's essentially like a way of walking through the house without leaving your phone or your computer.
Exactly.
And getting a feel for the actual size of the room and kind of having a 360 spin around and be like, oh, yep, that's where that is in relation to that.
Now, by no means will it ever replace the feeling of being in the house yourself, but at least it should give you a better understanding as to what the property is. So that when you do attend it in person, you're not disappointed, so to speak. Like you're not getting there and be like, fire out, that photographer's only showed me the best part of the lounge room because the Madhupur doesn't hide anything. So
that's very true. Yes.
Yeah. Because we know what you photographers are like. You like to get sneaky and just push that ugly bit out of the room, frame it beautifully and try to make it look as great as possible, which we appreciate. And so do our owners. But, we also need to be realistic as well and make sure people know what every square inch of the house is.
Indeed.
Especially in these times.
To expand on that too, I mean, it's been really great for our tenancies with all the rental properties we've done it on, because I know a big frustration in a lot of local agencies do it is that, we won't begin the application process until you've had a chance to view it or have someone view it on your behalf. But being able to utilise that 3D tour means we can mitigate that entirely, because then people have had the chance to walk through the whole thing and we can, process that application. And that's been, phenomenal for a lot of people just to be able to quickly go look at 10 houses and know that none of them are suitable. So then they're not frustrated getting stuck within a high demand. And also that we can just do the whole thing, electronically. So that's been a huge, huge benefit to our rental properties as well.
Look, and that could be a really good episode for a future as well. We might put a pin in it there because there has been some really great, amazing technology that has been rushed to market over the last couple of weeks to help with COVID. And I think that's a great segue to another episode potentially.
Most definitely. So you guys are happy to get back on the mics again? You feel good about today's episode? And
I feel a bit rusty, but hey, I'm happy to get back into it.
It's
well, I mean, the thing is, I hope if provided the sound works okay. I mean, we've got a pretty good solution here, so provided it sounds all right, why not?
Yeah, but don't forget, J-Mac, one day you'll be able to resume back over in your seat just over on this side.
Oh, yeah.
We miss having you in the room, J-Mac, so looking forward to getting you back here one day.
I'll send through a framed signed photo of myself so I can sit on the desk.
Oh, what about a life-size cardboard cutout so we can just put you in the corner?
I could deal with that.
All right. Well, I think we're starting to get off track now, so it's probably time to wrap it up, boys.
Yeah. Look, thank you, everybody out there that is listening to this episode and has listened to the past episodes. We really appreciate all the support and people reaching out to us throughout the time period that we were away and
the break
and the future and
whatever we want to call that sort of hiatus for a while.
Yeah, so we're back. We're really happy to be back and keep reaching out to us on our socials or through the emails. People were reaching out to us through that. So obviously those channels are working and stay safe out there.
No problem at all.
Awesome.
Thanks very much, guys.
Awesome.
See you soon, boys.
See ya.
See ya.
Bye. You have been listening to The Property Pod, produced and edited by 414 Media House in conjunction with 414 Real Estate and MacGregor First National Propriety Limited.
This podcast is general information only, and the thoughts and views expressed is the opinion of our panel, and listeners should always seek and use their own investigation into any topic we discuss to ensure they fully understand their own situation.
It does not constitute and should not be relied on as purchasing, selling, financial or investment advice or recommendations, express or implied, and it should not be used as an invitation to take up any agent or investment services. No investment decision or activity should be undertaken on the basis of this information.